I'm a woman. I like fiction, so I should like women's fiction, right? We'll see. Hey BookTube, it's Kim at Middle of the Book March. I have a reading project that I'm going to be embarking on for myself and thought I would tell you about it. This is going to be a project on women's fiction. What is women's fiction? I've heard that term for a really long time. I've also heard the term chick lit. Is it the same? What's the difference? Why is it out there? So I did a lot of research. I read a bunch of articles and pulled up some things online. I feel like everything's crooked today. And I got some really interesting information. What is women's fiction? According to all kinds of definitions on the internet, along with a bunch of online booksellers and articles that I found, women's fiction is fiction directed and geared towards and marketed towards female readers, women who are interested in reading stories about relationships and life and big life events and their journeys through different phases of life, whether it's marriage, divorce, motherhood, some types of things like that, or working out what's happening in their lives based on family conflict versus career or job conflict, hobbies, anything geared towards what the publishing conglomerate thinks women would like to read about. Typically, most women's fiction is written by women. Of course, there are men who are writing fiction geared towards women. Nicholas Sparks, I think, is one who's primarily, I think, in the romance genre. Richard Paul Evans, he wrote The Bridges of Madison County, and I think there are a few others. But my digging and my looking into women's fiction pulled up many, many, many books written specifically by women for those women's topics. What's the difference between women's fiction and chick lit? What I found was chick lit is geared towards younger women. And I don't know why there has to be a difference, but chick lit is more like younger women coming out of their parents' homes, graduating college, going into the workforce. Sneeze. All right, I think the sneeze is now over, and I forgot what I was talking about. Oh, chick lit. Chick lit has a lot to do with the topics that would appeal to younger women. What I want to know is, what's the need for women's fiction anyway? Why is there a delineation in the world of fiction and publishing that we need to have a subgenre of fiction geared specifically towards women? Why isn't there men's fiction? I already know the answers to these rhetorical questions that I'm posing to myself, but these are the things I wanted to kind of discuss on this topic of women's fiction. Let me inform you, what is the most lucrative fiction genre in the publishing world? And maybe this will shed some light on why we have a subgenre of women's fiction. The most lucrative genre that for authors and publishers is romance and erotica. And romance and erotica in the last few years pulls in between 1.5 and 2.0 billion dollars a year in revenue. So romance is an enormous industry. The second genre after romance and erotica for sheer revenue generation is mystery and crime thrillers, which are about half of the revenue of romance. What does that tell us? That tells us that the romance genre is very primarily, heavily slanted with female readers. And the publishing world knows this. So publishing is developing books and genres, because we know they're doing it, to appeal to women readers. Why? Why is it so lucrative to write for women? And here we go again. And so many sources that I found and so many articles that I read, women are far more likely to read novels than men. And it's not me giving you a stereotype. There are multiple sources that I found that all said the same thing. And the author Ian McEwan once said something that's been quoted, that And I'm paraphrasing, if it weren't for women, the novel would be dead. In a lot of research, it's been proven that men primarily read or reach for nonfiction, and women primarily reach for fiction. Women are much more avid readers than men on a typical basis. We all know of exceptions, and we can look around BookTube and see exceptions every single day. Why am I even bothering to talk to you about all this? Because women's fiction as a genre is not something that I'm typically reaching for. It's not something I'm typically attracted to. Maybe once in a while I've picked up a book that I thought sounded good or that a friend recommended. And women's fiction is women's fiction is often historical fiction. There's a lot of books that are labeled as historical fiction, which are very geared or concentrating on a female experience. And I tend not to like them. I've realized that historical fiction is not a group or a genre that I really enjoy, and I've tried many. Over the years, I think I've gotten saturated with it. A lot of historical fiction is geared around World War II, and I've read so many novels with those themes and those stories that I think I'm just tired of it. But I am interested to kind of look into what's the attraction. And again, like I said, I've read several over the years. I know what typical women's fiction reads like. I know what the storylines are usually like. It has a look, as you'll see in a lot of the books I'm going to show you. I have many books here that I've collected, and I'm not going to get into detail of plot lines, but I am going to just give you a few little nuggets or a few little words for each book. But what's going to be interesting in this video is the superficiality of the books, the way they look. And I've talked at length about how I love a pretty book. So many of these books have very similar themes. So let me show you what I'm talking about. One of the biggest marketing tools, or one of the ways that a lot of publishers will gear books towards women readers, is to put a picture on the cover that seems to be very feminine or seems to appeal to things that women like. This one is The Vintage Teacup Club, a novel by Vanessa Green. And it's a pair of, pretty obvious women's hands with a bunch of teacups. And I'm assuming that means publishers think we like teacups and we like pretty things and we like flowery things. And yeah, it's a pretty picture. They all discover this tea set and they think there's a story behind it. So that's the first one. Another one is crafting or sewing or quilting. There's so many novels based around quilting. This one is A Thread So Thin by Marie Bostwick. And she's also the author of A Thread of Truth. So this is a book that has to do with sewing somehow. Again, it's a pretty attractive picture. The Cobbled Court Quilt Shop. Very cozy, very quaint and crafty, and it's pink thread. This one is about a dress. This is the Grace Kelly dress by Brenda Janowitz. There are so many books geared towards women's fiction that have the cover that looks like this. The font is the same. The picture of the back of a woman is the same. This one is set in Paris. There's the Eiffel Tower. So has very stereotypically feminine themes on the cover. Apparently, according to publishers, women love food, and we like a lot of different types of food. The first one is from Mary Carter. It's The Pub Across the Pond. This is a gorgeous cover. I really think this is pretty. Another thing that a lot of women's fiction books have in common are floral covers. There's a lot of flowers on this one. It's shiny. It's very pretty. She goes to Ireland. She's a woman who's stifling in Ohio in the US, and she decides to take a trip to England. And it's got a very pretty cover. Apparently, women also love cake. When you ask me what is my favorite food, I will almost inevitably say birthday cake. Cake with frosting, cake of some sort. Even if it's like a blueberry bread or a muffin or lemon poppy seed bread, I think it's the texture thing, although I do love a good frosting. This one, The Coincidence of Coconut Cake by Amy E. Reichert. I remember when this book came out and I saw that cover and I held my breath for a second and I could taste the coconut frosting. This came out in 2015. The Little Beach Street Bakery by Jenny Colgan. Jenny Colgan is a quite prolific women's fiction author. Here we go. Cupcakes are just baby cakes, and I'm all over that one. It's a seaside resort, abandoned shop, a small flat on the Cornish coast. So, yeah, I think I have a couple books by Jenny Colgan. This one is set in a kitchen. It's called The Glass Kitchen by Linda Francis Lee. And I think this is one of this is only one of a few novels that I inadvertently picked up and ended up being a writer of Christian fiction. Again, overwhelmingly written by Christian women. So many Christian novels or books that are labeled Christian fiction have very similar themes. There's quite a few, many books with Amish romance, so it's really interesting. And this is The Supreme Macaroni Company. What woman doesn't like pasta, right? Publishing? Pasta and Italy and stereotypes all over the place. So it had macaroni in the title. I bought it. If I am insulting or offending anybody, I'm sorry, but there might be some stereotypes in this video, but I'm honestly just kind of reflecting what the publishing world is showing to us and is marketing to us. Now, I have a few authors that are quite well known. This one is Kate Morton, The Distant Hours. Kate Morton is a British writer who writes historical fiction. Almost all of them have some sort of mystery involved, or it's a family saga. Most of her books are quite thick. This one in paperback is like 560 pages. So family mystery, big, thick, chunky story, historical fiction. This one is Leanne Moriarty, who wrote Big Little Lies, and this is The Husband's Secret. Apparently Nicole Kidman is a big fan of her books because she was in a Big Little Lies, and I think she might be starting, there's another miniseries, it might be this one or 9 Perfect Strangers or one of them. But I found this for 50 cents at a library sale, and I thought, I'll try that. She's a very well-known writer of women's fiction. If you type in women's fiction under Goodreads or Amazon or any online bookseller, you will find so many books that have beaches on the cover. This one is Mary Alice Monroe, The Beach House. I could not believe, they all started to blend together because I couldn't believe that they all had some sort of, and there's dozens, if not hundreds of books with The Beach House as its title. And Mary Alice Monroe is yet another well-known women's fiction author. Here's another extremely prolific author of women's fiction, Ellen Hildebrand, The Matchmaker. I've seen articles with her, and she actually admits to writing beach fiction. She writes the summer novel, and many, if not most of her novels, have beachy scenes on them. So that's her. Maeve Binchy, who is a very well-known Irish author of women's fiction. This one is Heart and Soul. I've never read a book of hers, but found this one. This is, let's see, Dr. Clara Casey. She takes on the thankless task of establishing a clinic with little funding for 1 year. 2 difficult grown adult daughters, and she has an ex-husband, so she is divorced. Here's one of my favorites. Publishers think that women love books about books, and a lot of times we do. So here's the selection I have for that little subgenre. This is another Jenny Colgan, The Bookshop on the Shore. You put a bookshop in the title or a picture of bookshelves or a bookstore. I know for one, I'm going to be attracted to it, and then I'm going to look at the story and see if it's interesting to me. This one is set in London, and it's a Jenny Colgan novel. The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek by Kim Michelle Richardson. Now, this one and this one, The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes. These have a similar storyline in them about a traveling library run by women and real-life people born with blue skin in the Troublesome Creek, the dusty hills of Troublesome Creek. And there was some controversy that these books, and I don't remember, I think this one came out first, and then this one, there was some controversy about stolen storylines and that type of thing. There's also a whole other section of books based on Christmas stories. This is another Jenny Colgan, like I said, prolific women's fiction author. Christmas at the Island Hotel. Now, what do all of these books have in common so far? All of those authors are white women. I was astounded when I started looking things up and I realized they're all white women. What is that telling me? What is that telling us? So what I did was I went and tried to find women's fiction books by women of color. Or this is a Christmas novel, but it is Pride and Prejudice and Mistletoe by Melissa de la Cruz. She is known as a YA author. She is Filipina American, and this is basically a takeoff on Pride and Prejudice, but it's set in contemporary times in Christmas. Christmas. This one is Kimberly Lawson Roby, The Ultimate Betrayal. She is an African-American author. It's a Reverend Curtis Black novel. And I'm pretty sure it's not Christian fiction. But this sounded really good, and I picked that one up. Vanessa Yu's Magical Paris Tea Shop by Roselle Lim. Here's another one with tea shops and Paris. She is a Filipino Chinese American author, and yeah, living on the shore of Lake Erie. I also love this color, this kind of Tiffany blue color. That kind of gets me in every time. This one is from Zara Rahim. It's The Marriage Clock. She is a South Asian American and Muslim American author about marriage. This is the picture kind of tells you what the book is about when I read the blurb on the back. This one, The Dirty Girls Social Club by Elisa Valdez Rodriguez. She is a Latina American author, and I think I had seen this around for a while. It's basically a group, a large group of friends who call themselves the Dirty Girls. And last but not least, a very well-known African-American author of women's fiction is Terry McMillan, Getting Too Happy. And this is a continuation of the Waiting to Exhale from many years ago. I've read several of Terry McMillan's books back in the day and really enjoyed them, including Waiting to Exhale. So what is this all showing you? I wanted to start to pick away at some women's fiction. I want to see a few things. Do I enjoy it? Is it all written the same way? Is it all addressing the same themes? Why is publishing pushing this subgenre to women specifically? Is it purely based on money? I believe the majority of it is. There's a niche, and they have taken advantage of it quite well. The amount of money that this type of fiction brings in. One of the questions I'm asking myself, and I thought I would pose to you, should I be insulted by the term women's fiction? Why do I have to be separated out? Why do my tastes have to be segregated from male fiction? Is it different than spy novels or adventure stories? Or how do I feel about the stereotypes? What is my real life experience with women's fiction and with the themes and the stories? Is it well written at all? Are the stories enjoyable? Is it written in a way that I'm going to really connect with? Those are all the questions I wanted to ask myself. And I brought up this project during August, or I will be, because August is a prime beach reading month, and a lot of this is beach reading, another stereotypically publishing geared phrase for lighter themed books, for lighter stories, for books that are very fast paced, that are enjoyable and very easy to read. So let's see how I do. I'm surely not going to read all of these books all at once, but I am going to read one here and there and see how I like it and report back to you all. Let me know what you think of any of my questions. Let me know if I've offended you by asking any of this stuff. If any of the statistics I offered surprise you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to include several links in my description box for articles that I read and can kind of lead you down that trail if you'd like to do a little more research about reading and the book industry and publishing, the difference between male authors and female authors, and the difference between male readers and female readers. Where are we at with other gendered authors and or readers? Where are we at with gay and lesbian authors and or readers? What are those subgenres? Are we going to be segregating everybody out? Let me know what you think. This is a deeper topic, or it could be. It is and it isn't. Let me know what you think about women's fiction and if you've read any and enjoyed it. So thanks for watching so far. Bye, everybody.